Today we have a very cute and very quick little basket for Easter featuring our little lamb friend here. And it'll be great for a little gift for a small child or even a friend, relative, mom or dad. And again, it goes together very quickly. So let's take a look at what we have here. I've kind of just layered some things here just for myself so I know where everything goes. And we're going to begin by just kind of piecing some things together and then following through with the final assembly. So we've got this piece here. This is the little greenery that goes on the front of the basket. And we've got a couple pieces of DCWV. I don't know the exact name of the stack, but it's a nice little almost plaid, almost checkered sort of pattern that we're gonna get glued down onto this section here. Now I did hit this with some ink and just to kind of make it a little more interesting. So get that over the top of the piece that it sort of matches up with. Just make sure you get that nice and aligned. And then let's do the same with the other piece. Okay. And this one is a little more, this one's a little more fun, I guess you'd say, as far as, well, I just got done working on the explosion box, which you can probably see behind me right there. And that one is actually just as fun. And then we've got this little piece here. We're going to put a little bit of glue on the back of this. Just a few little dots. Don't need to overdo it. And we're going to get that glued on right in this little area here. Just make sure you've got the bottom nice and flush. And that's going to go right about there. Let me lift this up real quick. It's just easier to work with it that way. There we go. Right about there. There we go. And just lay that down right about there. Okay, there we go. And then we've got the little areas here for the main flower, and then there's going to be a couple more flowers that go here. But as far as that's concerned, that one's pretty much ready to go. Let's take a look at our little lamb here. And again, I kind of laid the things out so that I remember where they all go. And if this is your first time watching our videos, keep in mind that this is also my very first time assembling this project. I've got a wonderful team that creates all these amazing projects. I have my friend Ron, who is our art director, who creates all of these wonderful projects for us to enjoy. And then Diana, who lives near me, she is the one that takes everything and digitizes it so that we can all cut them with our machines. And I just kind of work here. Not really, but I occasionally get to kind of give some input on the types of things that I'd like to see and kind of plan out the schedules as far as holidays and the types of projects, and give some ideas, some very vague ideas, and then Ron disappears into his creative little world and conjures up these gorgeous projects. So anyway, we have the pink piece that goes on top, and then we've got this piece here. And you just want to make sure that you line this up correctly here at the top. I'm using the top as a guide, and then down here, watch the little scalloped areas of our sheep's wool. And I hit that with a nice turquoise. This is a white glitter. Okay, so that looks nice. And we've got these little pieces here that kind of should fit like a little puzzle right there. Okay, and just make sure that You get those lined up properly. So we'll go ahead and put a little bit of glue on this guy here and pop them right into place. Again, it's just like a little puzzle. And that gives the ears a nice added dimension. Get the other one in place. This is a really quick little project. You could probably work a little bit quicker than I am. If I wasn't explaining my whole process here, I could probably get this done a little bit quicker. Now here's the nose and the little mouth. Okay, they're all kind of together. And on the little pink piece here, there's some markers to help indicate where to place this. Okay, so go very light on the glue here. If you barely squeeze your bottle, you should be able to, actually, there's probably ever so slightly squeeze that bottle just to get a little bit of ink, or not ink, but glue right off the tip. Okay, and just get that nice and centered. That looks good. Okay, and we've got some pretty little eyes with some little eyelashes on them. And get those right in place. And there are also markers for the eyes, so make sure you get those placed correctly so that our little sheep looks nice and symmetrical. And get the other one here. This is probably the quickest of the 3 new projects. Come on, eyeball. There we go. Okay, we have a little nose. This is probably the tiniest little piece. And we're going to pop that right on this little area here. Just make sure you get that nice and centered. There we go. Some little eyebrows. And I'm going to use my little pick-me-up tool for this job, because this thing is tiny. We try to go as small as we can without over-stressing out the machines, because they are only so capable, but they're pretty amazing with what they can do as far as little details go. So this was actually cut with a Sizzix machine, but I don't think my Cricut would have any problem with this little piece. I've cut finer details in this. Okay, so let's just try to get that nice and aligned. There we go. Okay, so our sheep is pretty much done here, or our lamb, whatever you want to call it. We did create a bow using paper. So let's put that together real quick. Now what you're going to want to do is take this and you want to train this. Now let's start off with a very slight curve. Depending on the paper you're using, this is a thicker DCWV paper as well. And I don't want to just fold it because it might just bend and leave a crease on the edge there. I don't want that. I want to kind of bend it like that so it has a slight curve to it. And then we can go ahead and put a dot of glue in the middle here and bend that over and just push that down. You can see the little score marks in there. Just try to center that as nicely as you can and hold that in place because there's a little bit of resistance there until it sets. And despite my efforts to train that, I think because it is such a small piece, it did kind of leave a little bit of a crease, but you know what, it's so small, I don't even think it really matters all that much. And we'll do the other one just right on top of the other one here. Hopefully you can see that, right in the center. And just press and hold that down until it sets. Okay, there we go. And choose the side that looks better to you. I think that side looks better to me. We have this little piece here that's just going to go around the center. just to kind of give it a little added extra bit of dimension. I'm going to put just a little dot of glue on the back here. And I'm going to start on the back. And then I'm going to curl this around like this. Well, let's wait for this to dry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, so that's set. And then I'm going to put another little dot of glue on the back, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to curl this around. And then I'm going to glue it to the back here. And it's actually probably a little cute if you don't make it really taut and leave a little bit of dimension on the front of it, like that. So it looks a little more realistic. You don't want it to be, you don't want everything to be flat. You want to give it some life. So I'm going to hold that in place until it sets. And we have this little piece here, the little tail. We're going to glue this to that. I'm going to use a little foam square or a pop dot to put that on my little sheep's his hair, I guess you can call it. All right, so let's throw a little bit of glue towards the bottom section of the back of this bow. And then grab our little tail and glue that to the back. Make sure you've got it nice and centered, and just hold that in place until it sets. And while you have that kind of in hand and squeezing it, I should probably bring that up a tiny little bit. I'm going to go ahead and curl this tail to make it flare out a little bit. And that's going to make it look really cute. Okay, so there we go. Let me get my little foam dot or foam square. I'll just throw a little foam square on the back of this guy. We're going to make that bow look like it's popping off his head a little bit. And peel that backing off. Oops. You know, that's what happens when you get impatient and you don't let things set for the sake of not, you know, making you guys too bored with watching me do little mundane things like this. Sometimes I jump ahead a little bit too quick. Okay, but there is our little bow, and we're just going to pop that front and center, right in the center there. I think that looks about right. And just give it a little nudge. There we go. You might want to hot glue that because, well, if you're using glitter, I would definitely recommend hot gluing it. But there is the backmost portion, okay? All right, so let's take a look at our large flower in the center. Again, this is a DCWV paper, and I actually hit this with a little bit of an orange ink. And what we're gonna do is just curl these petals out, mostly at the tips. Okay, then we're going to take the other one and curl them the other way. And we're going to glue these two together and then throw the little centers of the flowers into the center. You want to go ahead and offset this so that they're not sitting right on top of each other. Okay, that way you've got a nice little dimensional flower. So let's throw just a little dot of glue right there in the center. You don't want to put too much on there. And do your best to get that nice and centered and offset. Just like that, roughly. There we go. Give it a good squeeze between your thumbs. Okay, and then I'm going to pop the little middle piece on there. You don't need to put glue on the whole little piece there. Just a little bit in the center is fine. It'll hold it nicely. Give that a good squeeze. And then I've got my clay colored AC cardstock. Just a little bit of glue in the center. Get that nice and centered as well. And there is our first little flower. Probably going to put a little bit of bling in the center of that. The rest of these flowers go together the exact same way, okay, all of these flowers. But I'll be happy to walk you through it. It's fun. It's very meditative. It's a fun little process. This is a 1/4 inch dowel that I'm using. And just kind of passing it between the dowel and my finger to get it to curl. Okay, so there's that. Let's get a little glue right on there. And I also hit this white with a little bit of turquoise. That always seems to look nice. And get that nice and centered. Whoops. Whoopsies. There we go. That looks good. Okay, and then put our little center on here, the larger center first, obviously, because then the other one would be covered up if we put that one down. Pretty little flower. Definitely helps to take your time, add a little ink to this, or really take the project to the next level. And you know, it's no longer just paper, it's beautified paper, I guess. And you can really put your own personal touch into it when you add the inking. All right, so again, just kind of curling these back ever so slightly, mostly towards the tips. Okay, and opposite way on this one. I'll throw a little dot right there. And again, make sure you're offsetting them so that it looks nice and full. Otherwise, you just got two layers that are kind of competing for attention. You don't want that. That looks about right. Let's get our little center in there. And then for the small flower, we have a couple little leaves that we've created for that, and that's going to go on top on the actual handle itself. So that'll be a really pretty little touch there. And we're pretty much done putting together the little embellishments, so to speak, for this project, minus this last little flower here. And after that, it's just a matter of assembling our basket, which is actually just a few pieces. Before we assemble it, we've got a few little overlay panels that we're going to put down. And then the assembly on this should go pretty quick. I think there's a total of 4 tabs to glue, and then we're going to take our little lamb and glue him or her into place. I guess it depends on the color of the bow. I think in this case, it could be either way, whatever. All right, let's put our little center in there. Just a little dot of glue. Pop that in the middle. Now you notice there, I had a little glue kind of squeeze out from when I was putting the 2 layers of petals together, and luckily that little centerpiece covers that up nicely. Even though the Scotch Quick Dry tacky glue dries pretty much clear, sometimes it does leave a little bit of a gloss to it, and depending on where it is, you may or may not notice it, but that's fine. Okay, now we've got this little guy here. I'm gonna go ahead and take and just pinch these leaves a little bit to add a little bit of dimension to them. Just like that, just give it a nice pinch. Okay, and pop a little drop of glue right in the center there. And then get your flower right in the middle. It might help to do it this way so you can actually see the middle better. There we go. Okay. Those things, they all just look so pretty sitting there together. All right, let's take a look at the main structure of our little basket here. Okay, so you'll notice that we have, you'll notice that we have these 2 sides. There are 2 pieces that look like this. One of them has a little L on it, the other one does not. This is your bottom, the L is your liner. And then there's this piece here, which is just a simple little rectangular box that the basket is going to sit on. So with that said, let's put together, let's actually glue down the little panels that we have on here. Okay, so doesn't matter which one. These are both pretty much identical pieces. There's nothing different about them to distinguish any difference. So it doesn't matter where you put this piece. find a nice pattern paper for this. Make sure you get a little bit of glue out onto those little scallops there. Okay, and let's get that nice and centered. Follow the little scallops there and try to make sure that you've got an even border on both sides. And just go ahead and place that down. Make sure it's nice and level there at the bottom. I think mine's a tad bit off. I got just enough time before that sets to make that adjustment. So thank you, Tacky Glue. Really appreciate that. Let's, while we're here, fold these tabs over. Okay, so that's cute. Then we have the two sides. And let me just fold these tabs now. You got these two tabs, or these two sides here. These are going to get one of these, like that. And it's just going to go right in the center. Just make sure you've got a nice even border going all the way around. When we put it down, and I might have to get my face in here a little bit just to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. There we go. A little excess glue shot out there, but that's okay, it happens. And the last one. And then we've got a few little overlays for the handle. Now the handle is going to be straight, it's not curved, so we can put the handles on while everything's flat. That will work out nicely for us. So again, just make sure you've got a nice even border going all the way around, like so. Okay, now we have this little piece here. And this is a nice little decorative piece that goes on the actual handle. You want to make sure that you get that nice and centered, okay? And it's going to terminate pretty much right at this little score mark here. And that's pretty much where it goes. So I'm going to flip this over. And there's a lot of little area to cover here. So what I'm probably going to do is just use a series of dots. And I'm going to stagger them, kind of do a zigzag. Just try to cover as much of the area as I can before the glue starts to set. If you are using a spray adhesive for something like this, that will probably work out nicely as it will cover the entire area. Just make sure you do it outside and that you don't have your other projects sitting around so that you don't inadvertently get glue on those. Okay, and let's try to do our best to get that aligned nicely. Whoops. Had a little glue meltdown here. And this is why the spray adhesive sometimes comes in handy, because I'm going to have a few little splotches here of glue that kind of shot out. Okay, so that'll dry clear. It'll look fine. And this is the back of it anyway. Okay, so we can actually go ahead and fold this because this is going to be coming in at an angle. Let's wait for this to really cure and set. There is a little bit of a score mark there because that's going to bend upward where the two pieces are going to join. But let's not mess with that too much just yet. And then we've got one more piece that we're going to put on here. I'm going to do this one off camera so I can really get my face in here. So go ahead and do that, and then we're going to go ahead and begin putting this thing together. Okay, so at this point, what we can go ahead and do, and actually I'm going to wait until we have this fully assembled. Let's put together the little base here. And it's a simple little rectangular three-dimensional shape. I'm going to go ahead and begin by just folding everything at the little score marks here. There's some little tiny triangular tabs that you want to make sure that you fold as well. Okay. And we'll begin by just taking a little bit of glue and placing it on the little triangular tab. You'll make sure you get that glue right up to the very edge, and then fold the neighboring piece in and just connect it so that it meets at the correct angle. Should be just a 90-degree angle here. And just hold that nice and tight until it sets, and then you can move on to the next piece. Again, just make sure you work that glue out to the very edge. And I'm going to go ahead and hold it like this. It might be a little bit easier. Just pushing that right on there. Just going to maintain a nice even pressure for a few seconds to make sure that that sets nicely. There we go. And push that in a little bit. Okay, so that looks like it's holding very well for me. Now I'm going to take this little tab here and get that glued to my neighbor. And just squeeze, let that set. Okay, and last but not least, we've got one more little triangular tab here. Get your glue on there. Whoa, that was a little too much there. I'm gonna scrape some of that out with my X-Acto knife. Guess while I'm there, I may as well kind of paint it up to the edge there. Let me get rid of some of that, because that is gonna potentially make a mess. There we go. That's not so bad. Just wipe off any excess glue that you may have coming out. And if you need to, stick a little dowel in there to nudge that little tab so it's making full contact with this side here. Okay, so that's pretty much it for that. I'm gonna bend this back just very gently. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and close this little piece up, and I'm gonna do a little bit of glue on the inner part of the little tabs here, and then a nice line of glue right out to the edge as close as you can get. As usual, I'm gonna go ahead and just spread that out nice and thin along the edge. And don't worry if you don't get it all in one shot, because you can always go back and clean it up. Okay, so flare these up a little bit, so as you're pushing down, you grab a little bit more of that surface area and just kind of run your finger along the edge. Make sure you've got it nice and lined up. This one is pretty small, so you should be able to get it in one little shot. If you don't, you can always go in and fix it, but that looks mighty fine. Okay, there we go. And that looks good to me. Now we do have this little decorative piece here, and if you look closely, there's a little score mark on one of the little scalloped pieces here. You want to fold that over, make sure it folds over nicely onto itself. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put just little bits of glue, little drops or dots on each of these scallops, and then maybe just a really fine line. My glue is not cooperating today. Okay, and we're going to line this up with the top edge. I'm going to use the little corner here as a guide, like that. Okay, so once we are sure that we've got that on there, you can kind of lay that flat on your table to continue to apply pressure as you move on to the next little step here. And I'm just going to do a dot right up by the scallop here. And then just going to run that glue bottle across that whole thing there and spread it nice and thin, and just pop that right on there. Run your finger along the top to help you with the alignments. That looks good. Very nice, nicely done. And let's grab our other one here. And again, look for that little score mark. It's kind of closer towards the end of one side. And there we go. And let's get our glue on here. And I'm just going to spread that thin to avoid a disaster. And just line that up with the top of this side. Just kind of run your finger along the top, make sure that you've got it nice and lined up. Okay, and then we can again just kind of lay it down on our table and continue working on the long portion. There we go. And I'm going to spread that thin, maybe dab a little extra glue at the beginning there where I didn't get enough, and fold that over, lay it right on top there. Use your fingers to kind of guide you. Okay, and just hold that in place until it sets nicely for you. There we go. Okay, so we've got a nice little scalloped edge there for once we put our basket down. All right, now to form the basket, we're just going to join all these sides together. So let's begin by putting glue on this tab here. And I'm going to get a little bit of glue right up to the edge there. Spread that thin. And I'm just going to align it like so. And give it a good push. And then I'm going to fold it over onto itself to make sure that I've got it nice and lined up. The little tab down here should match up nicely. Well, almost. As long as this edge is straight, we're going to be in good shape. So focus more on that than anything else. Okay. And now let's grab our other long piece here. Oh, we got some stray little rhinestones there. Okay, there we go. I'll lay this flat. I'm going to get my glue on this tab here. Nice little line right up to the edge. There we go. And, whoops. Make sure you get that nice and lined up with the bottom. There we go. And fold it over onto itself just to make sure that that is nice and aligned. Just like that. That looks good. Okay, and, oh, sorry, Mr. Flower. There's my last little piece here. Just get our glue on our tab. And get that out to the edge. Get that nice and aligned. I'm kind of focusing more on the bottom because it's more telling. The top has that little scallop, so it's kind of hard to tell if in fact you got it lined up properly at the top, but at the bottom you can kind of tell where both of the angles should kind of terminate, and that looks about right. Okay, now you can go ahead and close this up by putting glue on this final little tab here. Yeah, I went a little heavy with the glue there. Okay, it kind of helps to, if you're using your finger, to pull this down as you're spreading it so you don't accidentally hit the surface of the adjacent section. Okay, get that glue off my finger. And just want to get that nice and lined up. Focus on the bottom. There we go. And that looks pretty good. I'll just give it a squeeze, make sure everything gets a good hold all the way through. There we go. Okay, so the basket is forming. Now I'll just show you something here real quick. You can see this little area here where it's kind of coming apart. So with a piece of scrap paper, I've used razor blades, I've used X-Acto knives, anything. Just put a little drop of glue right on your paper, spread it thin, and then what you can do, turn it this way so you can see, just gonna paint some glue onto that area there, and then just hold it in place and give it a little extra love there so that it looks nice and complete. Okay. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna put our bottom on. Now just make sure that you find the one that doesn't have the little L on it. This one has the L, that's the liner, that's gonna go inside. This is our bottom, and I'm gonna start with one side first, and I'm always gonna start on the side that I feel needs to be the best looking, and that's gonna be the front, because everyone's gonna be seeing that. Now I'm actually going in here and cleaning up another little tab that I didn't get the glue out all the way to the edge, which is what I always tell you to do, and I failed to do it. So I've got a little bit of this area coming up. I just fixed the other side. Now I'm going to fix this side real quick. And you just got to really hold it in place until that glue sets and bonds nicely. But it makes a world of difference because the project just comes out looking very professional and nice. So take your time with that and go back in and clean some things up here and there if you need to. Okay, so I think I should probably wait a little bit longer, but I don't want to bore you. Okay, now, again, this is the front. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to put glue on this tab here, and I'm going to close this bottom up. Again, no one's really going to see the bottom of this because we're going to end up putting it on top of that base. But we want to make it as pretty as possible. So I'm going to spread that glue out. Okay, and get that first side in place, nice and aligned. There we go. Give it a good squeeze. You can kind of put it down on your surface too. Once you know you've got it in the right spot. Okay, give that a few extra seconds to really cure. Okay, and that looks good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold that in and glue it to the remaining 3 tabs here. So let's get our glue on the tabs here, work a little bit out to the edge. And again, if we need to go back in and clean this up, we can by using that little technique there. Okay, and let's just close that up. Get it nice and aligned, nice and centered all the way around. And it might help to put it down on your surface and push from the inside. That way you get a more even pressure throughout. Better chance of getting it just right the first time. I'm using a little dowel to really get that pressure right into the little corners here. Okay, let's take a look at what we got. And I'm happy with that. That doesn't look too bad. You can go ahead and fold this because these little handles are going to be coming inward anyway. Okay, so that's how the basket's going to look. So at this point, we can get our little liner inside. So I'm going to put glue around the perimeter on the inside. That looks sloppy, but that's okay because this thing is going to cover it right up. And plus, we're going to end up putting some grass in here. Not that kind of grass. Some regular grass. Okay, and this is our front. This is our back. And our little lamb is going to get glued in like so, because he's kind of peeking. Okay, now the handle's going to be coming in. Okay, so you want to make sure that you get his little ears through there first before you glue that down. So let's go ahead and get glue on the back of this. It's probably most important to make sure that you're getting glue up at the top edge here. Okay, and then just a little bit goes a long way in this section here. That's fine. Again, make sure you poke his little ears through before you set it. And those little scallops there on the back should align with the scallops that are there part of the project. I'm going to put this down on my table and do it like this so I can get a nice even pressure there. Okay. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so there's our little basket so far. Let's get our piece here on the front. Now take a look at this real quick and just kind of get an eyeball of where you want and where you don't want glue. Okay, there's just a few little areas here where the leaves kind of cross over the base of the basket, so you don't want to put any glue up here. I would kind of keep it just below that, and on these little leaves that come out here, you don't want to put any glue on that either. So kind of just start here, go out here, and actually I think maybe that wasn't needed either. Keep it to about there. Grab both sides of this and just kind of use the base here as your guide, because it should be nice and centered. And if you have any imperfections on that base there, you can kind of cover them up a little bit. But you do want to keep it pretty much flush with the project, because this still needs to be adhered to the little rectangle that we created. Okay, so hold that in place until it sets. If you need to add a little extra love to any of these parts here, you can use that little method that I showed you with the little piece of paper. Okay, and I think I'm going to put the flowers on last. Now we can go ahead and you want the scallops facing down. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our glue on this thing. And let's get some glue out to the edges. You want to make sure you get enough glue on this. I might have gone a little silly with the glue on some of these parts, but if you do this right, you can spread this glue out without making a huge mess. Kind of doing it at an angle, almost like I'm a, what are those called? Plows, where they always kind of plow at an angle to make sure that. Okay, anyway, I'm just blabbing now. Let's get this. It should fit this thing perfectly. Okay, nice and flush on the sides, nice and flush on the fronts, and then we can apply extra pressure here to make sure that we get that nice and lined up. And I've got this little piece here is kind of coming off, so I'm going to have to go back and kind of tweak that a little bit by adding some glue in there from behind, but that's okay. Just want to kind of hold that in place until it really grips nicely. And then we just have a few little flowers to put in place. I'm going to use some foam squares for that. Okay, so all that's really left to do is to add our little flowers, and I am going to use some foam squares to do that. Now, the large orange one in my case is going to go front and center. So I'm going to flip that over. I'm just going to use one. I think I can get away with that. It's paper on paper. These things hold very well. So I just want to go ahead and make sure that you get that nice and centered on that little circle that we've provided for you. Take a look at it and make sure that you've got a little bit of it kind of popping up. And that looks pretty good. I've got two white ones that we're going to put on the sides here. Okay, and these are going to get glued just above the little leaf here. Okay, so if you're using pop dots or foam squares or just glue or hot glue, whatever it is, just know that we're going to place it right about here. Okay, we want it kind of coming off the side a little bit. And this one's going to be a little bit taller than the other one. But again, placement is completely up to you. I mean, there's no right or wrong. Kind of giving you a guide. You can make it your own, as many of you do, and I love seeing that. Okay, so let me just grab. That one's not sticking very well. I'm gonna poke it in the middle here. There it goes. Okay, so let's get this guy up here. Just looking for some symmetry here. Make sure we've got that nice and lined up. And that looks good. All right, now also one other thing too. I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here on the handle. And actually, let's get it out to the edge too. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this right at the top. And we're going to hold that in place to create one nice little handle. Okay, so last but not least, I've got the little flower for the top. Take the backing off of that and pop that right in the center there. Make sure you got it nice and centered, just like that. There we go. Okay, so basket is all done. And we're gonna, like I said, fill it with some green grass and then some little treats. And check out the final photo for bling placement. I'm gonna add some rhinestones to this off camera here. But I hope you enjoyed putting this together with me. And if you did, would love to see a picture of it in the Dreaming Tree group on Facebook, or you can email me directly using the contact form on the website. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, would love if you took a second to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.